Raider! Welcome to Raiders Fan Radio. This is your Uncle Mosh coming to you from the Dago Dungeon. Join us as Raider Nation takes a lighter side journey with the worldwide fans of the dark side.
Okay, we're back. Look left, look right. Bolitnikov, a leaking pass. Touchdown!
We miss you, we love you, and we'll see you in the Hall of Fame.
When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, baby.
Intercepted by Khalil Mack. Touchdown! Raiders!
The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most zany, unbelievable, absolutely impossible dream of a play. Well, I love this team. I think this team can win.
Welcome once again to another fantastic episode of Raiders Fan Radio. Your old buddy Murph here for episode number 79 of Raiders Fan Radio. Of course, we always like to celebrate a player by naming our episodes after a former player. And so this week we're going to celebrate Mo Collins, a big guard and tackle for the Oakland Raiders, drafted out of Florida in 1998. Played till 2003, and of course was a big part of that number one offense for the Oakland Raiders back in 2002. The number one offense that went on to sadly lose early in the Super Bowl, but we still will celebrate Mo Collins and his accomplishments as an Oakland Raider during that time. So once again, thanks again for joining us, and of course, I cannot do an episode of Raiders Fan Radio on my own, so please welcome in my cousin, my good friend and yours from the Pacific Northwest, Sonny.
Hey, thanks for having me in this week, Murph. And I'm glad you stated that Mo Collins played for the Raiders, because there's also a Mo Collins who's an actor. She is a she, and was on Mad TV and Parks and Rec and all that. I was kind of wondering why you were naming the show after her. She hasn't done anything great, and she's mildly attractive. But it would just been awkward. So good. Yeah. What are we going to do when we hit 100?
Jim Otto. I've already thought about that.
What about 101?
Then we'll have to go back to number one, I guess. Somebody.
Then it just starts over or what?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
I don't know. I've been thinking about it the last couple shows.
Yeah, I thought because Otto is cool, man. That not to
Otto would be good.
Not,
at 100,
not to, not to spoiler alert, but his number was 00 because it was like 0. That's the way you pronounce that. So that's why he picked 00, and he was, I'm pretty sure, the last player to wear 00. So pretty cool there. But then after that, Sonny, it's all downhill. much like a lot of what we do. Start strong, and then it's just all downhill from there.
Much like a Raiders podcast in May.
Yes. Oh, boy, you aren't kidding. All right, so, Sonny, we got a few news stories to get to today. It's just us. My pastor, every once in a while, he'll we'll have a service that'll be like for like people that are volunteering for like another thing, and so the service will be for just like the people that are like in the church, and he calls it just usins. Like it's just like us, and that's what you get here today on Raiders Fan Radio. It's just usins. We got no guests, we got no interview, we got no voicemails to feature, we got no emails to feature. You got you. And
Murph,
what?
Quit giving people a bunch of reasons not to listen to the show.
You got you, and you got me, and we got 2 microphones and a couple of Derek Carr jerseys. So
that's all you need.
That's all you need. So welcome to this edition of Raiders Fan Radio. And let's go to Uncle Mosh, and he could tell you how you can get in touch with us.
Hey, boys and girls, this is Uncle Mosh. That's right. Somebody actually claims Sonny and Murph. These two. Check them out on their website, RaidersFanRadio.com. You can friend them on Facebook at Raiders Fan Radio, or you can like their fan page at Raiders Fan Radio Podcast. Hey, I don't tweet. I don't even know how to use a Twitter, but they do. You can Twitter them at Raiders Fan Radio. Call them. Leave a voicemail if you want. Go old school. 909-345-3346. That's 909-345-3346. Hey, do this. Please subscribe and rate Raiders Fan Radio on iTunes. You can listen to the show on all podcast services like Stitcher, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, and many, many more. Okay, am I done? Did I say all the stuff I was supposed to say? All right, I'm out of here.
All right, Sonny, what we got for this week is a handful of news stories. We're going to start off with talking a little bit about Colton Miller and the significance of that signing. We're going to talk about an appearance that Mark Davis made. We're going to talk about some events that happened around minicamp and OTAs. That's really about it. And then we're going and then get on to one little last segment. It's not necessarily a black hole, but I started featuring some audio from a CD my dad gave me a long time ago called the Return to Excellence. And basically it was an audio documentary hosted by Greg Papa that went down and featured all of the wins from the Raiders 2000 season. And so we started playing that and just moved away from it because, frankly, we had so many other things that were tying up our time on the show. We didn't really have time to feature it. Well, today we got time, so we're going to go ahead and feature the third cut from that Return to Excellence CD, and it's a big comeback win against Indianapolis Colts, and it's really cool because you can hear all kinds of obviously great calls by Greg Papa, but also some John Gruden interviews in there, and you get to hear some pretty cool former Raiders featured. So we'll go ahead and get to that, and then we'll shut this thing down for this week. All right, so Sonny, let's start off. Not too many big stories this week, but probably the most significant, I would say, would be the Colton Miller signing. Colton Miller, of course, as you know, was taken number 15th in the draft. He's the 6th Raider pick to sign a contract. So we've got under contract so far, the ticker says Maurice Hurst, Marcel Aitman, Johnny Townsend, P.J. Hall, and then Azim Victor. Still left on the board are Brandon Parker and then Arden Key, who were both drafted in the 3rd round. Sonny, what's the significance? Is there? What does that mean that we've got Colton Miller on the books before 2 of our 3rd rounders even?
Well, I mean, he's a 1st-round pick, so you'd think he'd be the first priority, right? That's kind of what I'm thinking. So 1st-round pick is signed, first priority. Now we can work our way down the list. And I think it keeps putting pressure on what is going to be very quickly an aging offensive line for the Raiders. You know, they're really good right now, but Penn maybe has a year left if he comes back from that injury. We don't know kind of how he's going to be. And then Hudson's right? 28, so yeah, I guess he got 6-7 more years left probably.
There you go. Yeah.
Osemele is probably close by there too. So. I like it, and it just goes to show they're getting things done, and it's nice that he's signed, and we can move forward and get the other guys signed.
Absolutely. It's interesting when we had Alexa Stabler on. She mentioned something about the collective bargaining agreement has really done a lot of the work already on rookie contracts. It's not like it used to be, like when we had all the whether it be
there's no holdouts.
There's no holdouts, right? There's not. There's what's the verbiage? Do you remember we talked about this a year or two ago? There is one area of the contract, and I forget, I should have looked this up before. I didn't know we were going to talk about this. I didn't think about it. But there's one area of the contract that actually can be negotiated, and there's a clause in there, and basically what the clause is that so that you sign for 4 years as a rookie. Well, if for some reason, say you got cut or you got traded to another team, would you be on the hook for all the guaranteed money as the drafting team, or would that money then transfer to the team that you're sending that player to? And I forget what that verbiage is called. There's a nice fancy term in there for it, but that basically is the only thing left to negotiate for drafted players. Like, that's it. So, obviously for some of the lower round guys, it's really not even a question because it's not a significant enough money to worry about. But sometimes your top players, like your top 1 or 2 draft picks, that negotiation could come into play. And I forget who it was. There was a player specifically that came up as part of the negotiation for the Raiders. It wasn't last year, so it wouldn't have been. Maybe it was Conley. You think it might have been Conley that came up? That we were talking about that clause. Do you remember Sonny us talking about that?
I couldn't tell you from last year. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to had it for lunch last week.
All starts to blend together. Anyways, but that's the last thing. That's the if there is anything to be questioned on it, it's only that, and it's frankly that part of the negotiation only comes into play very rarely. It's not,
it's not Jamarcus Russell. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. So,
which makes it makes it better, don't you think? I mean, maybe not for the Jamarcus Russells that could get that much money, but for your standard, first round draft picks and for the teams, it makes it much more fluid, makes it much more easier. Except now you got Dak Prescott. I think he's making $600,000 a year because he's still on his rookie contract, and the Cowboys, are in win now mode. But and obviously he's done better than $600,000 a year. So Cowboys win there. So it kind of hurts the players if they do like what Russell Wilson won one championship, coughed up another championship before his rookie contract was even up. Then it's like if you're the team, you're like, well, we already got a championship out of you. Why are we gonna pay you? And so in that situation, maybe the team has all the leverage, but it seems like it makes it fluid for the most part,
I think so. And frankly, I think that it's contributing a little bit to the windows that teams have to be successful that, and we've talked about that a lot too, about that, you only get a small window, the Seahawks that you mentioned, they're on the back end of theirs now, and only it's, that's why the Patriots are the anomaly, because their window has just stayed open. But for the most part, you only have like a, 3 to 6 year time frame where you have to win a championship. And I think that these new contracts, especially for a team that pulls their franchise quarterback with that rookie, look what the Rams are getting ready to do. Look at the Rams have just loaded up.
Rams are loading up, man.
And why? Exactly. Why are they able to do that? It's because they got a rookie contract on Jared Goff, and he's cheap. You know what I mean? Like, if you
it's the most money you're going to put in anyone in position, unless you have just a stud outside linebacker or defensive pass rusher. And so if you can get that quarterback and not pay him $20 million a year, which is what a stud quarterback's going for this year, think about how much more you can spread that wealth around to a team,
Absolutely. And so now you have this, you kind of have two ends of the spectrum, right? So you have the rookie guy that that is only going to cost you however many thousands or however many couple $1,000,000 compared to, like you said, the $20 million guy. It's such a huge gap. And then on the other end of it, you have the Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers type guys that are like, I've already made plenty of money. I'll just rework my contract. Now you go get more players to help us win a championship. And then in the middle, you have Derek Carr. Right in the middle, you have people like that. You have Cam Newton. You have that type of guy. The guys that are in their prime essentially, and then are in the middle of not only their prime playing, but their prime earning potential. And those are the guys, Joe Flacco. That's how you strap an organization, because now you got to pay that guy.
He won the Super Bowl coming off, he got his contract coming off his Super Bowl year, right?
Yep. And then he strapped the team for cash, and now look at what they're doing. And look at what it did to him. Or even Matthew Stafford is a good example. That guy got a freaking giant contract. And what have the Lions been able to do outside of that? They have, you know what I'm saying? So I think that this style, or not style, but the structuring of these contracts now on these rookie deals with this new CBA, I think that it's really, if you can load up on a team and then get a franchise quarterback in the draft before you got to pay him, there's your window. Like look at the Rams. The Rams right now are going to have that they got aging veterans, right? So you got the guys that are going to start aging out, and then you got the rookie quarterback. So like for the next 4 years, the Rams are going to be freaking studs, right? The Rams are going to be the division winner in the NFC West for the next 4 years. And then after that, who knows? Then it's going to, but anyways. So for the Raiders, the good news is that we've already paid Derek Carr. We're going to need to pay Derek Carr, but we still have to sign Sonny Khalil Mack. Now, is there, obviously the Raiders have been focused on everything on the heels of the draft. Where do you come out on Mack not signing yet? Here we are mid-May.
Not concerned at all. If we're in the preseason and he's not playing, then I'll have concern. But it's freaking May. I'm not concerned. Remember last year, all the hubbub about Derek Carr hasn't signed yet. Derek Carr's agents getting frustrated. All that clickbait article crap was going around prior to the draft. The little troll John Middlecoff, who I actually like on Twitter, but he kind of gets the pot stirred a little bit. He said, would it make sense for the Raiders to trade Mac? That sent everybody into a frenzy. Why would you trade Mac? Blah, 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 blah. We signed Derek Carr last year after apparently there was issues. There wasn't any issues. I think Mac's going to be a Raider for a long term. I don't think he's going anywhere. I mean, now he's the veteran of the team now, on defense. So if it's preseason and Mac ain't playing outside of the Raiders have benched him because he's going to be one of their premier starters, then I'll have an issue. But let's get through June, July first before we start kind of freaking out,
Well, and it wasn't Carr's contract in June?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So
it's like why are we worried about it's May? Let's not worry about it yet.
And there are two other guys. You talk about high profile players, and speaking of the Rams, there are two other guys that were drafted in the same draft class as Khalil Mack and also do not have contracts. So we got Aaron Donald from the Los Angeles Rams, right? Defensive tackle, arguably the best defensive tackle in the league. And then Beckham. Like, Odell Beckham hadn't signed yet. Same thing. So we got a guy who went number 5 in Mac. Beckham went 12, and Donald went 13. So you talk about 3 guys that were drafted in the top 13 that don't have contracts. Is freaking the Giants fans freaking out or the Rams? No.
Actually, Giants fans are freaking out because they might trade Odell Beckham.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a good point. But, I think it's important to note here, too, is that Khalil Mack's he's scheduled to make, in the last year of his rookie contract, he's scheduled to make just shy of $14 million. So it's not like he's going to be playing
he ain't
for the
cooking
league.
Top ramen with frozen vegetables for gourmet.
So, yeah. So he's going to be making plenty of money. And then, the other thing, too, is that the Raiders have to be, and here's something to remember, Raider Nation, whether it be the way that we handle free agency or the way that they handle Derek Carr, the way they're going to handle Khalil Mack, they have to be really careful about the money that they spend because even though Mack and Carr were the big 1 and 2, all right, but right behind them, you got Amari Cooper. And a lot of fans have criticized John Gruden for bringing in all these veterans, or all these old guys, quote old guys. But really, Sonny, when you look at the core of the team, when you look at the core of our starting 22, they're really young. And they're
I'll raise you Amari Cooper and also say, what about Gabe Jackson?
Gabe Jackson.
Did he already sign? Oh, yeah, here he did sign.
He did.
He signed his last year. Never mind.
Yes,
Go ahead.
he did. But there's another good point is that these guys are young and they have to think long term. We can't be thinking with a short mind here. We can't be thinking about 1 or 2 years. So we got Cooper is going to be, listen to these ages. Cooper's going to be, and hear these, and I mean, 23 years old. Gary and Conley, 22 years old. Sonny, what were you doing at 22 years old? Well,
I was riding a bus in Tennessee.
Yeah, right? Yeah, right. Getting ready to make your music career, right? Mario Edwards Jr., 24 years old. How much? It feels like Mario Edwards has been around for like 6 years. The guy's 24.
Yeah, right. Mario Edwards has disappointed us for like 7 straight years. He's only 24?
Like 24. Carl Joseph is 24. Jalen Richard is 24. Eddie Vanderdoes is 23. Daryl Worley is 23. Markel Lee, Nicholas Morrow, 22. And all of our draft picks practically.
Wait. I thought Gruden's only signing guys who are like 40 years old plus, Murph.
Exactly.
What are you trying to say?
And then Miller, Parker, and Arden Key, actually, and you can add Maurice Hurst and Johnny Townsend in there. Those guys are all barely 21. Think about that.
I thought Gruden's only signing senior citizens, Murph. Crazy. What are you trying to say?
It's crazy. It's just crazy. Look, the core of our team, the nucleus of our team is very, very young, and we're gonna have a perfect blend. We're gonna have these older guys come in, and they're gonna be able to mentor the young guys, and those young guys are all gonna get paid as long as they keep up their production, and they're all gonna get paid accordingly based on market value, and it's all going to be timely. The Raiders aren't just going to start going out there and throwing out a bunch of goofy contracts because they'll get upside down so quick. So it's much ado about nothing in the non-signings, and I think that the way that the signings are going, the way that they're paced, and when they happen, I think is just perfect. I think it's fine.
So looking at that, the Snake Pit wrote that article, didn't they, about the oldest oldest rosters in the league?
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. That we did. We pulled a lot of that info from RaidersSnakePit.com.
So where are the Raiders at in that comparison? Does it say the rankings?
I didn't. No, I didn't. No, they didn't list any rankings on there, and I didn't research it any further. I just once I started reading those names and saw those ages, I'm like, what do we like? We're good.
I know they're not. I thought they're like middle of the pack or something like that. But the other interesting thing that came out this week is the top 25 under 25. Did you see that list?
No, I didn't. Is that a Pro Football Focus thing? It sounds like.
I think it was on NFL.com or something,
okay.
like CBS
Right.
Sports something.
Okay.
Anyway, but it was top 25 NFL players under 25. Goff was the only quarterback to make it. Speaking of the Rams, there. How many Raiders made it?
Probably none, because Carr and Mack are 27. So and there you go. They're not like they're old either. The two leaders of our team, but I'm saying probably none.
None. Because the only guy really you would think would be Cooper, but he kind of had a down year last year. I mean, the whole Raiders had a down year last year. So
yeah, absolutely. There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. So nobody from the Raiders made it. Which I guess can you get mad about that? Not really. Cooper kind of sucked last year. He didn't have a solid year.
No, and all the rest of our players are all above 25. I mean, they may not be far, but when you look at, because who else makes that list? Carr and Mack, right? I mean, and
Conley.
Man, I even got shins.
Based on his cool hype video, Conley should have made it.
Oh my God,
Conley Island.
Oh yeah. Based on title cards and Twitter videos, yeah, he would definitely make it.
Yeah. He should have made it for sure. Jalen Richard, he's not going to make it. Speaking of Jalen Richard, if the Raiders have to keep Richard or Washington, who do they keep? Because they're kind of both similar backs. At this point, who would you say they keep?
I gotta say Washington, man. I'm just shocked the Raiders didn't draft a running back in there anywhere. I'm surprised. Look, maybe they know something about Doug Martin we don't know, but outside of that, Sonny, we know what our offense looks like with just Rashard Washington in the backfield. Even if beast mode, he can't go past this year, right? Can he go 2 years? His contract doesn't. So I don't know, man. I got to say, you asked the question, which one do I think they keep? I think Washington because I think he's a more violent runner. I just liked his just the way that he's more aggressive. I think Richard seems to be a little more shifty and probably a little better hands. But that's what.
That's the reason I think they keep Richard, because they have Lynch, who's your quote unquote violent runner, and they have the aging muscle hamster, who can be also your violent runner, and so Richard gives them that shiftiness, that pass catching out of the backfield, and that little more speed coming out. Plus, Washington just seemed to have a sucky year last year, man. Remember how many balls he dropped and how many fumbles, and both those guys weren't doing anything super great, but it seemed like of the two, Richard definitely had the better season.
I think overall he's probably the better player. You're right. That's a good point. But one way or the other, I just look, the running back room,
I don't see him keeping them both.
Like, you can't. That's why Elijah Hood is already gone. The running back room got awful crowded, awful fast. And look, and outside, and so look, you got those two guys, and then everyone else is 29 plus. So I don't know, but I'm just surprised the Raiders did not do something more long term in the draft, especially with Gruden's track record. Like he drafted Cadillac Williams in the first round, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? Like,
it's only May. There might be 17 running backs signed before preseason starts. So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, that's okay.
Hey, so this is Uncle Mosh, and apparently all you got to do to host a podcast is have a microphone, a garage, and a couple of Derek Carr jerseys. Ha! These two did it. You're listening to Raiders Fan Radio with Sonny and Murf.
All right, Sonny, next up on our list of news topics to talk about this week. You and I aren't, consumers of off-color material. We'll just say that. But some people are, and whatever. That's your thing.
What is off-color material, Murph? Before you label me a non-consumer of it.
Like nudie pics.
Yes, no.
Yeah, whatever, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody tells an off-color joke, it's a dirty joke, right? So,
well, occasionally those can be kind of funny, but
well, that's true. Yeah, but okay. So jokes, I think we're fine with, but we're not prudes by any means here on Raiders Fan Radio. But porn ain't our thing either. You know what I mean? Fair enough?
No, not since I was 12.
There you go. All right. So, okay. So that said, I did see a story come across my Twitter timeline this past week. It might have been a week prior. I put on, that was this week. I put on the list. And so there was, look, Vegas is known for a lot, right? Like its nickname is Sin City for a reason. And there's a lot of burlesque type shows and whatnot, the casinos and whatever. Well, there's one, and I don't even remember what casino it was that it's at, but it's called the Sexy Show. All right.
If you know what this sound is?
What? No, what is that?
You remember that sound? When you're walking down Vegas in the street corner, they slap the papers together and go, here you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, that. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. So the Sexy Show with 3 X's in sexy, because, of course, they put a Twitter post up of, thankfully they were clothed, but they're girls that are in this show from this casino. And standing in the middle of them all was the owner of the Oakland Raiders, Mark Davis. And the caption says, "We are so excited to have the Raiders come to Vegas. We would like to thank the owner of the team, Mark Davis, for getting sexy with us last night. We hope to host the entire team very soon."
It's already starting.
Sonny.
Hey, is he married?
No.
He ain't married. Can you look at the way he looks? Would you not go to a sexy show if you're Mark? The only thing he has is the Raiders and his money. Come on, man. Can't hate a guy for just trying to,
All right. Here's my thing. Here's the question I posed to you then. Yes.
Look, I'm looking at the picture right now. That guy looks so happy in that picture right now. Oh my gosh.
He looks like one of us down our front of the villas getting ready to eat raviolis.
Yeah.
All right,
exactly.
So listen, whatever. He's 60 some odd years old. He's not married. He wants to. You own the Raider. You're worth $500 million. You want to go to the Sexy Show? Knock yourself out. The part that I think the part that got my attention, got me thinking about this story a little bit, was this last part. We hope to host the entire team very soon. Sonny, that's the stuff that people bring up about a team going to Las Vegas. Oh, the distractions. And now, granted, our players are not going to be living in the casinos. It's not like there's going to be this, constant debauchery at their disposal. But there is going to be a lot of this stuff. And the idea of a cross promotion, or the idea of somehow having your players, instead of doing Mattress King, they're doing, whatever, the Booby Bungalow. That could be a problem, right? Like, what do you think?
Is that an actual place? The Booby
Bungalow? I just made that up, but it sounds kind of funny. Isn't it?
Booby Bungalow. That's what you got.
But you know what I'm saying? Wait a minute. I just for the first time, I'm like, maybe that's not again, but for Mark Davis, fine. But I don't want to see, and no, not like you would see Derek Carr or Khalil Mack, one of these guys doing this, but you might see a B-level players, some backup. I don't know. What do you think, man?
As far as
concerned,
a legal perspective, there's no issue. But it's the distraction. That's what I worry about. It's a huge distraction, and if you're a single guy in your early 20s and you're in the top physical shape of your life, and you got millions in the bank, or at least hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank, and you love women, come on, right? Like, all the trouble I got into when I was younger around women, and I was not in the top physical shape of my life.
And we were broke.
I was a professional athlete, and I was broke, and I still had so much drama with women. That's the only part that really worries me. Now, guys like Carr, I'm not worried about. Guys who are, strong family men, have a lot of faith, I'm not too concerned about, I believe Carr is who he is and stuff like that, And, I think to a certain degree, he might have a lot of influence on the other guys as well. Maybe some of the younger guys who are coming up and getting signed to the Raiders. But, yes, I can foresee a huge problem moving forward with the Raiders if there's not strict boundaries set up, and all this to say, what, there isn't strip clubs in Oakland? there's strip clubs everywhere you go and stuff. Backpage.com existed for a lot of years until it recently got shut down. So there's a lot of places dudes can go to get their rocks off and stuff like that. But Vegas doesn't hide the fact of that and just puts more temptation, I guess, for lack of a better word, out there. So, I mean, yeah, it's a huge concern, I think, dude. And to see freaking Mark Davis, this little Jim Carrey Dumb and Dumber haircut sitting there in the middle of all those chicks, it's like, oh, geez, here it goes, But, props to Mark Davis for getting in with the locals, right?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess it could, I guess, just be maybe could it be present a marketing issue or could a perception issue? I don't know. I just, because you're right. I mean, look, geography doesn't dictate these kinds of things. They exist everywhere. There's pornography exists everywhere. These kinds of establishments exist everywhere. Drugs are everywhere. Like, you could get into anything anywhere. Just because of where you live doesn't mean that if you don't have a strong background and whatever support network behind you, right? So, I mean, you could do that anywhere. I think that, like what you said though is the key point, is that Vegas wears this stuff on Front Street though. There ain't no hiding it. There's no shame involved. It's just, this is what it is and whatever. And so I'm just curious to see Mark Davis embrace that and to endorse that to the point where he's posing for a picture and clearly knows it's going to get out there for everything. It's just going to be a matter of time before we see players doing the same thing. And then that's going to, I guess it might just be what it is, man. I don't know. We will certainly see. But my hope for this would be to where it doesn't turn into a thing where it takes their focus off the field. Because it doesn't matter what the distraction is. It doesn't matter if it's a crazy family or it doesn't matter if it's a drug issue or whatever it is. If it takes your focus off of football, takes your ability away to perform on Sunday. And as a fan, that's what I'm concerned of. Obviously, I'm concerned for them as young men and want to see them be little choir boys, or not little choir boys, big choir boys. But I want to see them, I want to see their lives well put together. But I want to see them play well too, right? You know what I mean? So
at the same time, it might be a bigger distraction for the opposing teams because once the Raiders have been there for a while, once all that stuff, new city, new lights, blah, 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 blah. Once they've been there for a while, buy a house off of the strip, they settle into their family type atmosphere, most of them because they're married with kids and stuff like that. So they settle into that lifestyle. It might not be as big of a thing to them, but when Odell Beckham comes to town, maybe it's a bigger distraction for him and for other players, kind of have that flamboyant lifestyle there. Maybe it's more of a, maybe it becomes to our advantage. Maybe, the guys on our team send the ladies to the other opposing team's rooms, Maybe that's what Mark is doing. Maybe he's getting in with the girls, gets their numbers, and then he sends them to the opposing players and opposing teams' hotels the night before. Maybe that's what he's doing.
They just get random invites to the sexy show.
Yeah. Pretty funny because there is nothing sexy about Mark Davis, like not even remotely. So to see
owner of the Oakland Raiders and worth $500 million, that'll get you a lot in life.
To see his name attributed with the sexy show, like, come on, man, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? This is EJ Manuel. You're listening to Raiders Fan Radio. Super excited to get this season back rolling. I hope you guys are having a great offseason.
All right, Sonny, next up this week, we have my favorite story of the week. I'm talking about the mini camp that's been going on, the OTAs that's been going on. So to give you a quick idea what the schedule looks like for the Raiders this offseason, of course, their first day was April 9th. They had the volunteering mini camp that ran from April 24th to April 26th. Then the offseason workouts, that's what we're in the middle of now. They go from May 22nd through the 24th, and then the 29th through the 31st, and then June 4th through the 7th. And then mandatory minicamp is June 12th through 14th. So if you don't follow the pictures from the off-season workouts that are on Raiders.com, you're robbing yourself of joy, Raider Nation. You've got to go and check these things out. These guys are having so much fun, first and foremost. It just does your heart as a Raider fan good to see the smiles, the interaction between, Carr and Lynch and Carr and Gruden and, just seeing the way that these guys are really starting to gel already, because you can't fake that kind of stuff. You can't fake those kinds of expressions. And to see the way that they're gelling and coming together already is just so cool. And then the other thing, frankly, from a performance perspective, seeing guys like Martavis Bryant that can jump out of the dang building and catch balls one-handed. Holy cow.
What is it, like 4 feet off the ground, that one picture?
Gosh, dude, it's just
one-handed too, right?
One-handed, man. And it's like, whoa, like, it's just so fun. So, Sonny, have you got a chance to look at any of those?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One of my favorites is of it looked like Carr and Gruden were doing some drills there and stuff. And Gruden's chasing Derek on a drop back. And I think Derek's rolling left. And Chucky just has that look in his face, just like, I'm going to get you, boy. I'm going to get you. And it's like, you just never seen that, In fact, if you go on to Raiders.com, go down to the off-season program, Friday, 5/18/18, and look at picture number 17. It's also my favorite picture. It's of Derek Carr throwing the ball. And, it looks kind of funny because Derek's in the act of throwing, his mouth open. But Gruden is right behind him, and Gruden looks like Mark Davis did in the picture with the sexy girls, because he just has this, like, smirk on his face, and he's kind of puffing his chest up, and he just looks all giddy watching Derek throw the ball. And it's pretty cool. And it just makes you think, like, John Gruden, when did he retire from Tampa? Like late 2000s, So for the last several years, he's been watching all these quarterbacks coming up. And you have to think when he was doing that, he had to have been like, oh, man, it'd be great to play with this guy. Oh, man, it'd be great to play with that guy. Oh, man, what would it be like to coach this guy, Because who was John Gruden's last quarterback in Tampa that he coached? Do you remember?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. Was it Greasy? I don't know. I'll look it up.
Wouldn't it be Brad Johnson?
No.
Who was that? Who was the Tampa? Oh, Dilfer.
No, Dilfer was gone way before. No. Dilfer
Who was the quarterback he won the Super Bowl with?
Brad Johnson.
Yeah.
But no, he went through 150 quarterbacks after that. Okay. I'll look it up. Yeah, I'll look it up.
But none of them were any good, you know what I'm saying? And so now, after doing quarterback camp for so many years, after being close to these guys, after watching how good they were, and Derek, didn't Derek set a record or something like that when he was at the camp? And so now to have him come back and be coaching Derek, the picture, again, it's the off-season program pictures on Friday, 5/18, picture number 17. I don't know if I can seal it and post it on Facebook. I guess I probably could. I'll give credit to the Raiders for it.
Yeah.
The picture just looks so funny, dude. It's the epitome, I think, of Gruden coming back to coaching and having a weapon like Derek and the smile on his face. And it's pretty freaking cool, man. It's pretty cool.
It is. So his last quarterbacks were, I was right, it was Brian Greasy was one, and then Jeff Garcia. They split time, I'm assuming because of injury or something like that. But yeah, Garcia was 38 years old at that time, and then Greasy was 33. So yeah, I mean,
a young gun like Derek, come on, man.
Yeah, and that was always kind of the knock. Well, not always kind of. That's recently been the knock on Gruden, was that, he went from Rich Gannon to Brad Johnson to, Jeff Garcia, right? He went to these type of guys that were, old quarterbacks. Well, now he's got a guy that's, 27 years old, right in the middle of his prime. And, what's he going to be able to do with a quarterback like that? Well, based on those pictures, man, he's going to be doing a lot. I mean, just that level of interaction and that amount of hands-on coaching. And, look, I don't want to use this as an opportunity to beat up on Jack Del Rio because everyone's got a different coaching style. But when you are literally in the face of your players like that and you're that invested in their success, I think that level of coaching and that level of leadership, that's transformative. Like, anybody can sit back and, be a judge of talent or, can provide analysis or whatever and direction. But to actually walk the talk, right, for lack of a better term, right, to actually do it and to have your players and those around you trust that you know what you're doing and that you're willing to show them and to do that. It's just like that's next level type stuff. And so to see him do that in this week, I mean, look, and we're only talking about a glimpse, right? This is just one small little peep through the window of what's getting ready to happen for us this year as far as the level of coaching. So I just think it's so cool to see him doing that. And, I brought up Martavis Bryant and as far as the performance of these guys. And there's been a lot of cool shots. So, like, there was pictures of, like, the pass rush group, like the defensive line guys. But then there's one of the wide receivers. And, Sonny, when you look at that and you look at Cooper and you look at Nelson and you look at Bryant and you look at Ryan Switzer, and I'm like, especially that one picture of Bryant catching the ball, too. I'm like, is this the best wide receiver core we've had since Gruden was here, since Brown and Rice and Porter and all those guys? Like, especially from a hand.
On paper, yeah, but let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. But, I mean, as far as hands go, right? We hadn't had guys with this good of hands since when? Then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cooper's, let's see how he goes with his hands.
I mean, Cooper Crabtree, not last year, year before, was really good. Like, Cooper's second year, Crabtree had a great year that year. Like, they looked good, right? The 2016 year, that was a pretty good wide receiver core. But who was our third? Seth Roberts. And now Seth had a good year as well. The Dread Pirate Roberts game where he, won it for us late and whatever. I mean, he had some good games in there, but I don't know. But that was the only one that would come close, right? Because I'm thinking because, Johnny Lee Higgins and Jerry Porter don't, like I'm like trying to think of like who the other, Ronald Curry. Like Ronald Curry had good hands. He made that amazing game-winning catch in Denver in the snow. But like I'm just thinking like all the wide receivers. Like as far as a group goes, this could be strong, man. I mean, certainly Derek Carr is going to have plenty of weapons, right?
Jordy Nelson, Martavis Bryant, Amari Cooper. Come on, dude. Just right. And I think Cooper plays better because of, everybody around him and stuff like that, And last year, nobody played better. So to knock Cooper too hard is kind of unfair, I think. When Cooper had a good offensive coordinator, Cooper tore it up, you know what I'm saying? And so I think we need to kind of give him some slack. But you have Cooper, Nelson, and Martavius. Who do you double? You have to double at least one of those guys. You have to. And so now, there's legitimate threats at every single spot. Who are you going to put in your slot? I mean, they could rotate all three of those guys in their slot and have lots of fun. I mean, it's going to be awesome.
That's a cool point, man. It's something that I hadn't thought about. Is that all three of those guys could play in the slot, and we know Gruden will do that. We know what he did with Brown and with Rice. Like there wasn't really a number one. Everybody played in the slot and thrived. And if you look at like what Larry Fitzgerald does now. I mean, he thrives in the slot. He's the best slot receiver in all of football, man. The guy's freaking 40. You know what I mean? So, absolutely. I think that's a really encouraging way to look at it and to think about it is that all three of those guys. And then you add in Switzer, which everybody's hyped on this guy. Look, I didn't know a lot about him. I watched the All or Nothing of the Dallas Cowboys, and he's featured quite a bit in that. And unfortunately, in part of it, because he fumbles a ball early in the year on a kickoff and turns it over. But outside of that, like, I mean, I didn't really know a lot about him, but everybody's like hyped about this guy. And I'm like, I don't know if it's because you just think he's going to be, Wes Welker or Julian Edelman or something because he's 5'9" and white, but I don't know. But I don't know why everybody's so hyped on him. But if he's any semblance of what people think he's going to be, well, then he could be a stud slot wide receiver too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Nah, I think it's like I say, man, I think Gruden's pretty dang happy to have Derek and that picture. We just posted it on our Facebook page. In fact, I just posted a quick little who had a better week, Davis at the Sexy Show or Gruden coaching Carr? Who has the bigger smile? So, yeah, man, I think Gruden's just kind of happy to be back, but beyond happy to be back, happy to be back and coaching who he's coaching, man.
Saddle up, little buckaroos. Raiders fans are for life. Other podcasts have taken the long dirt nap. But you've got Raiders Fan Radio. We're the wagon you've hitched your horses to. Mosey along with us as we ride out of the light and ride off into the dark side.
All right, Sonny. So a little while ago, it was a couple of months ago, we featured some audio from a CD called Return to Excellence. I've got it here. It was put out by the Ticket 1050, and my dad had sent this to me, back in 2003 or 4 or something like that. But anyway, so what the CD is that it was put out by the radio station that at the time was the flagship station for the Raiders. And basically it went down and it did a week-by-week or win-by-win rundown of the Raiders season in 2000. And I thought it was fascinating back then and even more recently, just listening to it, just kind of going back and revisiting the sights and sounds from that season. But then when Gruden came back, then it changed that dynamic even more because, that was it for us as Raider Nation when we finally returned, right? Literally returned to excellence. And so we featured the intro for that already, and we featured the first cut from it. And so now we're going to feature the third clip here, which is the Indianapolis Colts comeback. And you'll hear all kinds of fun names in there, including guys like Peyton Manning and Edgerrin James and whatnot.
As the game started out, the Colts proved that they were ready for the Raiders' defensive challenges. They took the opening kickoff and marched right down the field for a 7-0 lead.
Peyton Manning dropping back to pass. Pump fake, throws, end zone, caught by Marcus Pollard. Touchdown, Colts. It took them less than 5 minutes, and they absolutely dissected the Raiders right down the field for an 80-yard touchdown mark.
It was second-year sensation Edgerrin James who gave the Colts a 14-0 lead. James then continued to abuse the Raiders' defense, this time showing his versatility by snagging a touchdown pass from Peyton Manning to make it 21-0 Colts.
They move James off the backfield on the line, empty backfield, throw to him in the middle, 5, and he goes into the end zone for a touchdown. Edgerrin James, he is the edge. They can't stop him. He ran right through Beekert, caught the ball on the 4, and went into the end zone diving.
And things did not look good for the Silver and Black. Now with their backs to the wall, the Raiders needed someone to turn on the switch, and the team turned to their veteran leader, Rich Gannon. With the accuracy of his right arm and his scrambling ability, Gannon led the team in one of the greatest comebacks in the history of the franchise.
Third down and goal, Raiders on the 3. Backs are split. One of them, Tim Brown, moves in motion out right. Gannon dropping, pumping left, looking middle, scrambling around, now going to run, and he dives, and he is in. Touchdown, Raiders. Gannon got in.
The Colts did follow it up with a Mike Vanderjagt field goal to make it 24-7 in the second quarter, but Rich Gannon was still not done.
Gannon looking left, now going to run again, pump fakes, trying to get outside 5, and he goes for the pylon, and he is in. Touchdown, Gannon. His second running touchdown of the game.
All of a sudden, it was a 21-14 game, and the momentum was in the Raiders' favor. And while Rich Gannon and the Raider offense was starting to find the cracks in the Colts' defense, Greg Beekert, the Raiders' middle linebacker, was busy figuring out the audible system of quarterback Peyton Manning. His halftime chalk talk to the rest of the defense was key in shutting down the Colts in the second half, and Beekert performed on the field as well.
Manning going to throw from the end zone, and he swings it out for Dilger, the tight end, short, and he shoved. Oh, he fumbled the ball, and Beekert's got it. The ball went up in the air, and Beekert caught it out of the air on the Colt 15-yard line.
Beekert's fumble recovery would lead to a Sebastian Janikowski field goal to cut the Colt lead to 24-17. Then Rich Gannon continued his career day on the ground by rushing for touchdown number 3.
Here we go again, 3rd and 1 from the Colts 6. And they give it a win. No, play action. Gannon's going to run in the end zone and tie the game. The Raiders will be within 1 at 24-23. What a play. Gannon faking the handoff and then coming out the left side on a naked bootleg.
And since nobody wants to come all the way back from 21-0 and 24-7 deficits without finishing the job, the Raiders turned to Tyrone Wheatley to drive nails into Colts head coach Jim Mora's heart. Wheatley's first touchdown run of the afternoon gave the Raiders a 7-point lead, and then John Gruden's hammer came back for an encore.
They give it to Wheatley up the middle. He dives, and Tyrone Wheatley's into the end zone. Touchdown, Raiders! Tyrone Wheatley has given the Raiders a 37-24 lead with 5 minutes and 39 seconds to go in a stunned RCA Dome.
The Raiders withstood the Colts' last-second drive to pick up a much-needed early-season road victory. Rich Gannon had one of his best performances in a Raider uniform. Head coach John Gruden.
He hasn't got the textbook quarterback style, but, when a game starts, he can hurt you a lot of different ways, and he's not a real rangy 6'4" or 6'5" player, so he has to find ways to deliver the ball in congested areas. Sometimes it's sidearm, sometimes it's over the top, and sometimes it's on the move.
The improbable comeback win over the Colts in Indianapolis, a place where the Colts had been 7-1 in 1999, set the Raiders up at 2-0, sending them now into their biggest game of the first quarter of the year.
All right, Sonny, there we go. There's the look back at the year 2000 season and the comeback against Indianapolis. Man, So many cool things in there. Want to get your take on. A couple things that came to mind for me was the adjustments that were made for the Raiders to be able to come back. That's something that the Raiders really haven't done well lately. The quarterback runs for 3 touchdowns. We certainly haven't seen Derek Carr have a day like that. The short distance that we expected that Marshawn was going to do last year. And then really the last thing I thought was really neat was when Gruden talked about Derek Carr, or excuse me, back then he talked about Rich Gannon of using a variety of different throws, right? We saw Brett Favre make an entire career out of that, where just use what you got, use what your talent is going to be able to allow you to do, but be comfortable doing it. Be comfortable being off balance. Be comfortable, sidearm or whatever it may be. And I think that's something that Derek Carr, frankly, could be very, very good at and don't do enough. Look at the game last year when he's sprinting out left, going against his throwing arm, and he freaking pins Michael Crabtree in the front of the end zone. Like, the Raiders, I think, and I certainly expect to see them do much, much more of that. But anyway, so fun clip to go back and check out there. Don't you think?
I cringed when I heard Beekert and fumble recovery in the same sentence.
Oh,
catch that?
Yeah.
It was just
kidding.
Because that whole era
foreshadowing
of the Raiders, that whole era of the Raiders is overshadowed by the tuck rule, man. It's just there's just no other way to look back at that time in Raiders history and not just get angry. And I don't know if I didn't think I was looking for it, but it just jumped out. And I think Beekert recovered the fumble in this way. He didn't. He recovered it. And so it's hard. It's hard to go back to that time frame as a fan and not get disappointed and not get frustrated, and then naturally that leads to you getting angry and upset and all that, And so if I'm as a fan thinking that, do you think Chuck is the same way? Do you think Gruden, what was it, 17 years later, 18 years later, do you think that still angers him? And do you think it still frustrates him? And do you think he would have coached anywhere else if not in Oakland? What if the Buffalo Bills were going to give him $100 million or $10 million a year? And maybe they wouldn't have gave him that. But do you think Gruden would have the same passion coaching the Bills or coaching the Browns or coaching somebody else other than the Raiders? Because part of me thinks a big reason he came back was for that revenge factor, that he never got past how it ended, as much as any Raiders fan never did. And I don't know. I literally started thinking about that after I heard Beekert and fumble, and just kind of had the other stuff in the background.
Well, you bring up something interesting, and you made a great, I guess, meme, you call it, whatever, an edit last year, where you put a picture of Derek Carr and you had the words "unfinished business" written across it. It's a great picture. We actually made posters of it and handed them out at the first game this year last year in Tennessee, because we felt that we were robbed. Right, we were robbed by Derek Carr's injury the prior year, and would they have won the Super Bowl? I don't know, but I sure would have liked to have seen him get a shot at it. And I think that as a coach, as somebody that does this stuff professionally, you got to move on, right? Like they're never going to dwell on the past. They're always going to, look to the next play. They're not going to, they're going to worry about the one that's in front of them. You never worry about the last one. You never worry about the next one. You worry about the one that you're in. And so I think as a coach, that's very present minded. But all that said, also these games define a legacy for these guys. And the tuck rule defines a legacy for John Gruden with the Raiders. And it led to a confluence of events that resulted in his departure. And, you could look at his coaching career then in Tampa Bay with mixed results. People say, he won the Super Bowl with Tony Dungy's defense. And then he, when he was left to his own, he did whatever. But
they kind of knock him.
Knock him, right? And so it's debatable. It's certainly at a minimum, it's debatable. So, I think that as John Gruden and a lot of those players, even anybody from that era, looks back on that moment, I think there's an unfinished business there that they look to. And I think that coupled with his passion for the game and passion and an understanding for what his legacy is going to be, yeah, I think that he approaches our team with a different mindset or certainly enthusiasm that he would, or that he wouldn't with another team. That would he coach the Buffalo Bills that way? I don't think so. Does that mean that he would do a worse job with the Bills? I don't think so that either. I think that he's a football coach first and foremost, and he's going to, he loves the game and he loves the men that play it, and he's going to do his best regardless of where he was at, just like a player would, right? Like, but that said, I feel like there's some extra mustard on it for him. I definitely do. I mean, how could you not? Even as much as you can be a pro, you're still a human and you're still a competitive as crap human being, right? So, and that they were robbed. They were freaking robbed. So, we're going to have next week, Sonny, we're going to have John Kingdon on again. We talked to John in October, and he is one of the authors of Al Davis Behind the Raiders Shield. And we talked to him about that moment, and I'll pose that question to him. I'll ask him about that, about what he thinks now, after being there firsthand for Gruden's first time through, what that looks like for him the second time through, and how much of that does have an impact in whether it's on his mindset or his strategy or whatever, how that all kind of fits in. I think it's a great question, Sonny.
Kingdom was there at the time, right?
Yeah,
that happened.
He sure was.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how Gruden handled that after the fact and post. All that stuff happened and stuff like that. It'd be kind of interesting to hear his take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, that's a fair point on that one, Sonny. And it's unfortunate, man. I mean, I ain't got to tell you that, right? I don't got to tell anybody, any Raider fan, that. I mean, the way that went down, I mean, not only were we robbed on that call, but we were robbed of our future. And I don't think I'm over dramatizing that. Like, John Gruden's departure forever altered the path that we were on, and it negatively impacted until now. So, I mean, that's been a long time, right? 16 dang years.
So if Gruden wins the Super Bowl in Oakland prior to them moving to Vegas, does that make the 14 years of just laughing stock in the league worth it? Or if Gruden never leaves, if we don't get robbed, do the Raiders stay in Oakland? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a really interesting thing to think about.
That's butterfly effect territory right there. Yeah, I mean, well, dude, when you win a Super Bowl, I mean, the kind of exposure and the kind of interest and revenue that generates is, I mean, I don't know what it's defined as. I don't know, and I'm sure it means different for different teams. If the Cowboys win a Super Bowl versus the Bills or the Jaguars or a team like that, but still, the amount of revenue that you generate is, I mean, it's a lot. It's ungodly. I mean, so yeah, I think it would have had an impact. Certainly, that certainly would have.
So it's an interesting thing to look at and stuff. And you got to think if I'm as a fan. If I'm removed from the situation, as a fan, the guys who experience that game, we know what Woodson thinks, because he's pretty vocal about it. You know that, and as a competitive guy, I mean, I still remember plays from 7th grade Pop Warner football that I want back, and so to do it on the professional level like that, and to get robbed, and then to have your whole life altered after the fact. I don't see how Gruden could not have that as like something that haunts him. And, maybe he wakes up every morning at 3:00 before he watches the quarterback tapes and watches that play again, just to get him fired up again. Stuff like that. These guys are weird, man. Michael Jordan used any little thing to give him that extra pissed offness to take it to his opponents, Yeah, I'd be really curious to get a behind-the-scenes thing about Gruden, and if he looks at that or keeps it close to the vest as extra motivation for the Raiders this year.
Well, we've heard him go on record as saying it's a crock of S. I mean, we've heard him say that. Heck, at his press conference, man, what did he say? Hey, Woodson, that was a fumble.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
that's right.
So I mean, it's there. Yeah. It's definitely there. Now, to what extent does it?
What does he do with it? And when no one's looking, though, like how does he sit there and agonize over it? And just he's drinking his scotch and he slams it down. He's all pissed off, and calls up Derek late at night. We're gonna take it to him, kid.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, say. Well, hey, I believe that's all we got for this week, man. You got anything else for us? Got anything else for Raider Nation?
Nah, I'm so fascinated with this picture of Mark Davis at the Sexy Show in Gruden at the Ron in Ohio states.
Is he already?
I think he already said Mark doesn't look nearly as aroused as Gruden does. Pretty funny.
Well played, Ron. Oh, that's funny.
Posted that up there on Facebook comments. Pretty funny.
Oh, that's good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, hey, check us out on Facebook. You can find our show at it's actually at Raiders Fan Radio Podcast on Facebook, but you can just Google Raiders Fan Radio and find us. Sonny, we are dangerously close to getting 3,000 likes. So whoever hits number 3,000, we got a gift for you. We'll get you a Raiders Fan Radio T-shirt or deadpiratesports.com gift card. We will definitely get you something as a show of appreciation. So please hit that like button on there. Help us out with that. Also, you can catch our show pretty much anywhere. iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We ask that you like and subscribe us there, please. YouTube here, Sonny, lately. Subscribers there. So thankful to those of you that are checking out the show on YouTube. And please continue to support the show that way. Subscribe to us there. And you can all find all of our content on our website, which is RaidersFanRadio.com. And then any of the social medias, we're at Raiders Fan Radio. So that's Instagram, Twitter. Is Tumblr still a thing? I don't think we have that, do we? We got
Tumblr?
a MySpace. We got a MySpace, Sonny?
No MySpace.
Did you ever have you were a musician back in the day. Did you have a MySpace account?
I remember back in the day, we played this hardcore show with a bunch of heavy metal thrash bands. And afterwards, one of them, I mean, it was like, just straight slaying. They stopped after their set. They said, all right, thanks, guys. Check us out on our MySpace page. And it sounded like the lamest thing ever, but yeah, we were all about the MySpace.
Nice.
And then you could throw a sheep at somebody on Facebook, and all of a sudden that dominated everything.
There you go. Well, that's all we got for this week, Sonny. Thank you for joining us here, as always, in the Dago Dungeon. We got coming back next week. What do we got next week? We got that interview with John Kingdon, so we'll have that locked and loaded. So definitely check us back out for that. Author of Behind the Raiders Shield. And outside of that, I guess that's it. Anyways, all right. Thanks for checking us out. And hit us with the tagline, Sonny.
I don't know which one it is.
We got so many.
From the womb to the tomb, Raider Nation. Pretty funny, because there is nothing sexy about Mark Davis.